got our live stream up and running. I'm Moshe, coming to you from Israel and the Galilee. So on May 25th, which I think was last night or maybe 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning on May 25th, the United States with fighter jets attacked Iran. Explosions were heard. I understand their air defense systems went off. Boats were blown up, and several naval members of the Iranian Navy got killed. And Trump was saying it was not a war attack, it was a defensive attack. And the Iranians are trying to make believe that it didn't happen. They do that a lot. Okay, it's real as rain. It's real, okay? CENTCOM said it's real, And, the reports back it up. It's a real event, okay? Now, Trump's also strongly pushing on 6 Arab nations to join the Abrahamic Accords in the Middle East, including Saudi Arabia. And this is very unusual. One of them already declined, which is Pakistan, but they have a good excuse because they're the negotiator with Iran. It would probably cause Iran to say they will not talk to Pakistan. This causing the Arab states to join the Abrahamic Accords is a massive insult to Iran. It's not just slapping their face like this with a glove. It's like boom, 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 6 times, And we're going to go through that, and we're going to discuss the economic implications, the wartime implications, and prophecy with them coming out of the north and returning to Israel. They don't know who they are yet. Okay, so we're going to talk about that too. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, all of a sudden, Trump, while they're negotiating, attacks them. And I'm going to read you the latest demands of Iran. There were 5 demands, and there were, it's like Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck wrote it or something. I mean, it's, we're going to talk about what's going to happen next. When Trump made this attack, which is probably within the last 36 hours, he didn't announce it immediately. I don't know why. But maybe to give the Iranians an opportunity to save face and just step out and say, okay, we'll take your deal, Donald. Thank you for it. We're not worthy, you're a great leader, or something like that. I don't know. But I'm sure that this was a nudge to start showing Iran that they got to move into Trump's idea of a deal. And there's going to be more nudges like this. And the fact that Iran has not yet retaliated makes it very clear that they're showing weakness, and they know they're showing weakness. That's the big deal, okay? So where does this take us is in interesting places, and we'll cover all that stuff today, and we're going to go through what all would happen if we had this amount of Abrahamic Accords. What would it look like? And That's going to be interesting. Okay, so I'm going to jump into the chat in the live stream and put a post up very quickly. Shouldn't take but a very brief period of time. And we'll cover what happened and what we expect to see happening. Okay. It looks like I got sound and picture. How's the sound and picture? Getting a little bit of a broken up on the voice. I'm not. Oh, now it's working. Okay. All right. I'm gonna crank the voice down with the sound. Okay. And I'm gonna get my post up, which is gonna be rather rapid. All right. Just another few seconds, guys. It looks good. I got that done, I believe. And people are coming in. It looks good. Okay. Being a Bible believing site, I'm going to do some praise, which is going to cause some people to leave. I think there's 25 in here now. Watch how many leave. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay, so there was a bona fide legitimate attack by America on Iran. Iran apparently in the last 48 or so hours, maybe 72, knocked down an expensive U.S. drone with some new air defense missile system that we had not seen before. That does not mean by any stretch of the imagination that it is going to take down stealth jets. Okay, don't go there. Taking down drones is light years easier than taking down an F-35 or one of the other, the Raptors or B-1, B-2 bombers. Those things are very, very difficult to get. All right, so before Trump attacked Iran on his social media, he put out a post which had a picture of an obvious bomb, that drops out of an airplane, and it said on there, "Thank you for your attention to this matter." So that was, I would have to admit, it was a rather creative way of showing the Iranians what he intended to do, and then he did it. So what this is telling me is this. Trump went way out and said this was a defensive action, They were a threat. The drone got shot down. Remember that. That's real. Okay? So he could go to Congress and say that's real. Okay? Opening bases in the Middle East is, in the eyes of the American Congress, is not war. I mean, in the eyes of Iran or something, it probably is, but it's not war, okay? And the bases have been there for a gazillion years. And they're to protect American interests and allies in the region. Okay, period. And the Americans are very comfortable with that, including the Congress. They have no issues whatsoever with anything like that. It's it's fine with them, you know. Uh, the blockade, I don't know. A lot of people consider a blockade an act of war. You tell me, I don't know. Is it or not? You know. Trump could always say he's enforcing sanctions. That's maybe not the same thing as war. They're talking about putting American lives, military lives into jeopardy. Oh, so it's an iffy thing. What to say about this? Okay, no doubt about it. So he got some go fast boats, and he got some shore missile launch facilities. Those were the targets. Missile launch facilities would hit the blockade ships, the American warships doing the blockade. And that's one threat. The other threat is hitting civilian vessels, or who knows what, with the Iranians, okay? I would say, contrary to what Trump is thinking and saying, this is not scaring the Iranians. Don't think they're getting scared. Forget that. It's got them concerned, and they consider Trump treacherous because while he talks about negotiations day and night, he just decides he needs to attack them. Now, they're no saints either. They knocked down a drone. It was a surveillance drone. Or being used for surveillance. Maybe you could do multifunction roles. I don't know. Okay. Since I don't see any positive responses from Iran, I am of the opinion that Trump will repeat this in the coming days. Now, let's go through some things more carefully. And okay, a couple of prayer requests. Pray for SK Sierra Kilo, the father. So you want to pray for the father of SK Sierra Kilo for healing. This is a very elderly person in hospitals and has different things they're trying to deal with. So healing for the father of SK. I didn't get the initials for the father. Okay. And let's pray one more time for ES Echo Sierra. Let's pray that we want to pray for healing and to get a place to live, a good place to live, and a walker to get around. Okay? So sorry, has a walker. We don't need that. So we'll start with, for ES Echo Sierra, we want to pray for a good place to live and healing. Okay. Had recent surgery complications, lost the house that was living in. All right. or perhaps it was an apartment, I believe. All right. So that's rather serious. So I put it out again. I know I put it out yesterday. I put it out again today because it's one of the serious things. That's not a, oh Lord, buy me a new Mercedes Benz prayer. You know, that's serious stuff. Okay. um, so the U.S. strikes did happen. The target included Iranian military sites, coastal, the Go Fast boats. Explosions were reported, multiple reports of explosions near Bandar and Abbas coastal areas. So the fact that they were focusing on coastal areas would mean that the defensive action is they were worried about their naval ships or civilian vessels in the Straits of Hormuz and or the Persian Gulf. So now it's appropriate that I explain to you what the Iranians want. And this came out of, I didn't get it, someone else did. They got it out of, I believe, out of Arab social media and translated it to Hebrew, and I put it into English. For you, it's easier for me too. What Iran wants. It's saying it wants to build trust. Okay. Yeah, sing me another song. I don't know how to. The Iranians and trust is like a dog playing the piano or something, They want ending the war on all fronts, especially in Lebanon. Israel is avidly and aggressively attacking Lebanon, okay? Wholeheartedly. I believe we could say Netanyahu wants to get his last licks in on Lebanon before a ceasefire, but no. Rubio is saying we're not going to impede Israel with the right to defend themselves, which means the Iranians are running around threatening to kill us. Are they not? They are. And building up weapons and attacks and stuff like that. The Hezbollah, rather. The Hezbollah. So Israel's going to be able to keep attacking them. So why the accelerated attacks? For several days. Why? I'll tell you why. Because war is imminent with Iran. It appears imminent on all fronts. To me and everybody on the internet that's got their head screwed on halfway straight sees it the same way. And there's a confirmation with the American strike we just had, okay? You don't negotiate with the Iranians that way, guys. You can. I mean, is it negotiating from strength? Yeah. But that's the kind of stuff you do when you want an unconditional or perhaps a conditional surrender. Okay? You keep beating them down to show them the futility of resisting. And your message is, listen, I don't want to destroy your country, destroy your soldiers, and stuff like that. No matter how bad people were saying the German army was, I'm talking about the regular German army, not the Gestapo, not the SS, okay? If they got Allied troops cornered, surrounded and outnumbered, let's say they got 150 Allied troops and there was 650 soldiers with all kinds of artillery, the colonel or the general in charge of the Germans would want to talk to the guy in charge of the Americans, maybe a white flag, sit down with a cup of coffee or liquor or something, and they would talk, and the German guy would say, listen, it's a complete waste of life with you soldiers. I don't want to kill you soldiers. They can't make it. They can't survive. I just turn on my artillery, and in a half hour, an hour, you're gone. Okay? Just surrender. We'll treat you well. Really. We'll give you food right away. We'll give you water. We'll give you medical. You'll be POWs and stuff like that. Early on in the war, I believe the Germans did treat POWs with some respect. They probably fed them decently, and they put them in barracks, if you will, which were, surrounded with barbed wire and stuff like that. Did they use electrified fences? I don't think so. Maybe in some cases they did. It wasn't real common. And they had guards guarding them that were like older people that they didn't want to put into combat, or soldiers that had something wrong with them. Okay, they got wounded, they lost the use of an arm or a leg or something like that. They were not disabled completely, but they could do this type of job. They had guns. The people in the POW camps had no guns. Okay, there were no guns. They didn't have anything like that. And they did give them some medical, but as the war progressed, food was hard for them to get. Okay, medical supplies were hard to get, and the soldiers that they left around to guard the prisoners were probably 50 years and up, in many cases. And the ones that weren't that far gone, they were pulling them into the front lines. And, that's what they did. And there were escapes and stuff like that. And the soldiers were getting fed, but they weren't getting fed very well, and stuff like that. But they weren't treating them as concentration camp people. They didn't have work. They weren't going into factories and being worked. They weren't beaten. They weren't wearing, prison garments. They usually wore their old uniform till it fell off or something. This kind of stuff. So they did treat people well. So there is a way to treat POWs well. America treated them well most of the time. Okay, so their number one is they want to end the war on all fronts. Now the reason Netanyahu is blowing up Lebanon, the other day we did 121 strikes in one day, 2 days ago. You understand? That's like big time. Why? Because the war with Iran's going to break out, and we don't want Hezbollah harassing us with attacks while we're putting our energy into Iran. Not hard to understand. That's why he's doing it this time. There's other way, there could be a time when he would be doing it before a ceasefire so he could get his last licks in. But this is not one of those times. Rubio said no, they're not going to do that. Iran wants that avidly, but they may have to give up on that. I don't know. Number two, they want, now follow this carefully and you see it's like Bugs Bunny wrote it or something, right? Lifting the blockade and stopping American maritime piracy. This is, now, American piracy. Yeah, I know. You see the U.S. Navy captured, this Iranian civilian oil tanker, and they put the crew up on the deck and they put a plank out and they prodded them with bayonets and made them walk the plank with their hands tied behind their back so they would drown. Come on, yeah, American maritime. Give me a break. Okay. Allowing the passage of civilian ships through the Straits of Hormuz, close attention now, through the Straits of Hormuz, according to Iranian arrangements. Okay, this means Iran is controlling ship traffic through the Persian Gulf. Why them? Why not the UAE or Qatar or who knows what run the ships? They got just as much right as Iran. So Iran wants Trump's blessings to be a thug and do shakedowns. Now, if they're controlling it with, what do they use the words? Iranian arrangements? Give me $2 million a ship for a toll. You know, does that add up? Sure. Number 4, suspending oil sanctions for 30 or 60 days. So that means they want to get the oil flying out of there, right, as much as they can for 1 or 2 months. Make money. Pay their proxies. Number 5, releasing the frozen Iranian funds. Now, that's about $12 billion. And if they're in a rush to throw oil out the door for 2 months, they're going to get more billions of dollars, maybe just as much, or could be more. So they want to get well financially. And that enables them to do a lot of things. Buy stuff, pay proxies, things like that. Try to buy aircraft from somebody, Russia, China, North Korea. Buy more missiles, buy whatever they can. There's no clause in here that, yeah, we will do this, but thou shalt cease building your missiles. And none of that, okay? Now, these are their conditions, not for a permanent ceasefire. These are their conditions to enter into a 30 to 60 day ceasefire pending creation of a new ceasefire that would be more permanent. You understand? So this is their conditions to enter into a ceasefire. Now, Trump, not being the village idiot in this matter with negotiations and deals, is saying he'll give them the money, piecemeal if they agree to the terms. But he might give them the $12 billion. I don't know. And he might release the sanctions, But there's a lot of other problems that Trump wants that they're not addressing anything regarding nuclear here. They're not addressing anything about the large amount of uranium dust that's highly activated. Trump is saying, well, we'll go in and get it, or they'll give it to us peacefully one way or the other, There's a lot of things missing here. And this is what the Iranians are presenting, and I don't think Trump is at all interested. Look, Trump is never going to concede control of the Persian Gulf to the Iranians. Okay? It's just not going to happen. Okay? So the Iranians are saying that nobody should say we're close to a deal. The guy admitted that some progress was made, but he said it's a very untrue statement to say we're close to a deal. We still have differences. And I'll cover more of that as we go on. But the differences are rather substantial and rather important. And Trump, remember, is running around every day saying, oh, no nukes, right? I'm going to get that nuclear material back and we'll put it in America and deactivate it or whatever he does with it, right? And now the Iranians don't want to talk about that. They don't want to give that up. So it makes Trump look bad. So we're pretty far away, okay, from a deal with them, all right? President Trump claimed Monday that he had demanded the leaders of 6 Muslim Arab nations in the region here to join the Abrahamic Accord if they want to be part of the Iranian nuclear deal, which he said is proceeding nicely. And the Iranian nuclear deal is the deal, the ceasefire. So what Trump is saying, let's put it in baby talk. He's telling the heads of, well, the countries involved are Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Egypt, Pakistan, Turkey, and Jordan. Okay? He wants them, he says it should be mandatory, to normalize relations with Israel by agreeing to the 2020 U.S. brokered Accords, the Abrahamic Accords, which he, I believe, had a hand in. Also included he also talked and said that the UAE and Bahrain are already in the accord, so he wants them to behave properly. And he doesn't want them involved in the negotiations if they're not going to do this. That's what he's basically saying. Because they're sitting there giving him conditions, nudging him, and prodding him, and he's telling them, go join the Abrahamic Accords, and they don't want to. Okay? So now Trump's saying, okay, I've been listening to you, I've been postponing it, and you're afraid you're going to be attacked, and I understand that. We've given you patriots, and, we put our troops there, we're trying, but you got to join the Abrahamic Accords if you want to have a say in this matter. Because it's not a one-way street. I'm asking you to do something, and you're asking me. And I'm listening to you, and you ain't listening to me. And I'm the art of the deal author, and if you're going to play this game with me, it ain't going to work. You got to do this. Pakistan immediately said no, we reject it. They said Trump is bringing something into the negotiations that's not related, it's another issue. He's sort of right, but Trump doesn't see it that way. Okay? And I'll explain what Trump's vision appears to be. Okay? So Trump's not listening to them. They're going to call him up on the phone. They're going to say, make the deal with Iran. We don't want to get the oil fields blown up and all this stuff. And Trump's going to say, make the Abrahamic Accord. Call me when it's done. What are they going to do then? Call Iran up and say, they're sorry. We want to be your servant. Iran's got one foot in the grave and another foot on a banana peel. Now, let's talk about this because this got prophetic implications. Okay. First of all, I told you that Iran is called in Jeremiah 49 Elam, E-L-A-M. Elam goes down and gets destroyed so bad the people left in Elam scatter into every single nation of the world. and the sword follows them and they get cut off. They sit there and they chant, "Death to America, death to Israel." And Trump knows that. Trump knows they've tried to assassinate him, or he believes it, or knows it, or both. And, they're constantly chanting "Death to America, death to Israel." Now, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Oman, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia don't run around stirring the pot. Now, Syria doesn't really stir the pot. Syria stirs the pot with violence inside their own country. Well, Trump could look at that in a way more relaxed fashion, because that's not going to start any wars. It's just going to mean a few thousand people that live in Syria are going to get killed. That's one thing. A war is another thing. Okay, and he don't like it, But okay, moving along. So, Elam, God says he will break the bow of Elam, the chief of their might. This is the arrow. Arrows are called missiles at times. You pull it out of your quiver, you put it in your bow, you let go, and you shoot your arrow. The bow is the launcher of the arrow, which can be called a missile in Old English and stuff. So, the missile launcher is what's going to get broken. See, I've told you this for years. You could have 250,000 missiles, and if you only have 1,000 missile launches, you're not in such great shape, okay? If you got 250,000 missiles and you got, 50,000 missile launchers, you're a horrifically dangerous entity, even 25,000, Iran's probably down to 300 missile launchers, okay? The missiles without the launcher are worthless. So the real prime target is the launcher. So though attacking the missiles can help too, you get an opportunity to blow up a missile storage facility, you take it. All right, so the emphasis is on that, which is, they got mobile missile launchers and they got the missile cities, the fortified facilities built into the sides of mountains that have missile launchers in them. So that needs to go. And like I've told you many times, it appears that bombing them helped, because we both bombed them, America and Israel, but they were still active. So I think the real remedy is to send special forces in, and they would protect the special forces. They just bring them in with helicopters. They're not going to have them hanging up in space on a parachute with these lunatics shooting at them with machine guns. They bring them in with a helicopter. If they want to attack one missile site, what they can do is get a few Apaches in there, some A-10 Warthogs, and get, let's say, 4 jets of any flavor, F-15, F-16s, the ones that come off the aircraft carriers, F-35, and fly around the area. And if you see any enemies, you can shoot light rockets at them, you can use cannon or gun on them, or bomb them. So they sanitize the area, so to speak, tactically. There's no enemy there, and there's no mines or anything there, because the percussive effects of the ordnance would detonate any of the mines. Okay, so that's all over with, right? If these bombing attacks happen to damage the missile facility embedded underground or in the side of a mountain, so much the better. Hey, good move, And then the special forces come in. with helicopters, and they're probably going to have 8 or 12 aircraft in the very immediate area flying around. So if anything pops up, the planes just go and they get a lock on it and they destroy it. So they could repel, 1,500 troops from attacking 8 special forces. They just up the number of planes from 8 to 25 and start dropping 500-pounders, and they're the enemy's going to scatter. They're not going to push the onslaught. They're going to get killed and run away. Okay. Plus, if anything like that happens, you could evacuate the troops. The helicopter would drop them and then take off and drop whatever equipment they had, and it would take off and stay someplace safe, again, protected. But the helicopter's got to be careful because of getting shot at by air defense systems Iran has. So they got to watch it. But you can exfiltrate them somehow, okay? Maybe keep them on the ground, Iran may not want to fire on its own missile cities, so that's another option. Okay, so then they go in and they can attack. To launch a missile from an underground facility or a facility built into a mountain, you got to have a door that opens, okay? And the door has got to be probably 15 feet long or more, and it's going to have to be probably at least 4 feet wide. Okay, so it's not opening up something like a sewer cover, this is a big door, right? And the door can open this way, it could open this way, it could open this way, or it could slide. There are limited options, Probably the sliding door would be the least strongest. So this kind would be probably stronger. The sliding door has got to be on a track, and all you got to do is bomb it and bend the track, and your sliding door is jammed shut. This type of door is more difficult to affect that with, okay? Now, what is the door made out of? Well, is it made out of wood, just for camouflage? Doubtful. Is it made out of, 8-inch thick steel? Can you imagine what kind of motor you'd need to move that? I don't think so. I'd say 1 or 2 inch, So you can disable it, okay? But the guys on the ground can go precisely where it is and look at the gate, either it slides or it lifts, and put explosives right down where the sliding or lifting gate or door is in the surrounding area that contains it, the frame that holds it, and then you just got to bend the stuff and it won't work. So they'll see exactly where it is. They'll walk over there, they'll put the stuff down, and then they'll walk away, boom, detonation, and then they'll inspect it, and okay, we got to do it again, and, or not. What else? There's generators underground that are providing electricity to run this missile launch facility. And they need power in there, they need lights, they need a lot of things, okay? Communications, computers, maybe other things, plus the missile launchers and opening the gates and the doors. If it's outside, you'll see it, and you could just fly by and lay your machine gun on it for 2 seconds, put 20 rounds of 50 cal or 20 millimeter or 30 millimeter in there, and that generator has just become garbage. You may as well throw it out. But if it's underground, you can't. Okay, But the generator's running on diesel. It's not running on battery with solar. They're not that dumb. It's running on diesel. It's got a motor with diesel that's charging. It's making fumes, and they're exhausting the fumes up through ductwork out to the surface or up to the surface. And that's certainly going to be detectable by boots on the ground. The heat from the smoke, the gases, the toxic gases, that's like an exhaust pipe of a car. It stinks, right? Okay. It's like that. You got it? So what they do is they gotta vent it out so the guys don't breathe it in and kill themselves, right? Okay. So they just detect where it's venting out and then they just start throwing stuff down the pipe. Like, what could you throw down the pipe? Well, you could throw tear gas or worse down the pipe. Do they have tear gas masks in there for this? I highly doubt it. If they did, it would just be a question of time. See, a tear gas mask or a gas mask has a filter, and the filter can only filter so much stuff. Then the filter doesn't work. Then they have to have spare filters and change the filters. And this is highly unlikely in an indoor underground facility. Okay? So that's one great idea. They could just gas them with tear gas and make them come out, and then when they come out, the special forces just goes in there and blows it up from inside. See, blowing it from outside is where the defense is. Blowing it up from inside, there's not much protection. They just got to go down there and look for the critical places to put their explosives, and they wouldn't need a lot, probably 25, 50 pounds of explosives in 2 or 3 different areas would collapse the thing or make it seriously screwed up, or they could put it where the missiles are and then you'd have all kinds of secondary explosions. Easy steezy to destroy the place from inside, no problem, okay? That's one thing. The other thing you could do is if they got traps to stop tear gas from coming in, or I don't know what, then you just clog the exhaust vent. How do you clog it? Well, you could take old underwear and stuff it in there. The thing's probably about this big, it might be this big, I don't know. It's not that, you look at a 20, 30-story office building, it's big, but, this thing is probably a pipe, like, maybe 12 by 8 or 18 by 10 or something like that, right? You can just clog it up with anything. I don't care, whatever you want to clog it up with. Clogging it up is going to clog it up. Then the gases aren't going to vent. They're going to back up, and either they're going to gas themselves or shut their generator off. And if they shut their generator off, they can't launch. And if they shut it off, they're going to have to shut the fan. Now, what does the fan do? They've got to have a big fan with, like 4, 5, 6 foot blades. Okay? A big sucker that's going to spin and create a draft, and pull air in from ductwork to the surface. It wouldn't be the same ductwork as the exhaust for the diesel generator, so they're pulling air in from the surface, and it's getting spread around the place in ductwork, and that's not hard to do. So they're pulling the air in, okay? So that means there has to be an opening. And the opening can't be at ground level in the grass and everything, because it's going to get obstructed, things will fall in, rain will come in, mud, so it's going to have to be elevated above the ground, probably at least 3 feet. They might have it 6 or 8 feet. They don't want an animal going in there. They don't want birds going in there. They don't want rodents in there. snakes or whatever. They don't want that. So it's going to be out, and then they find that and just clog it up. I mean, let me explain to you how easy it is. You could take a garbage bag liner, if the ductwork's not that big, put it over their air intake duct and close it with duct tape so it stays on there. That's all you got to do. You know, there's no magic there. Now, I'm sure they'll use something more sophisticated than a garbage liner, but I'm trying to give you the reality of how vulnerable it is with boots on the ground, okay? Highly vulnerable, okay? They can do the same thing with the exhaust from the diesel. Take a garbage liner and put it on there and wrap it with a whole lot of lots of duct tape to hold it in place, and then it's backed up. The air doesn't come out in the exhaust with great strength. Not like that. But they're not going to do that. They're going to go with something way more sophisticated, okay? So that's how you disable it. If you kill the electric grid, you're not going to shut down the missile launching facilities, the missile cities as they call them, because they're running on generator. Now, what about them running out of fuel? Well, rest assured they didn't leave 3 or 4, 50-gallon barrels of fuel in there. They probably have a tank in there that's, maybe the size of a small school bus or something like that. So it could probably go for 60 or 90 days. Okay? Maybe it's the size of a large school bus. They would have that. So it would be there for a long time. Whatever the size of the tanks are, they're going to run it for 60, 90 days, I'm sure. Okay? Maybe not 90, maybe 60, but to say just 30, maybe, but that's bad thinking, but maybe that's all they got. I don't know. I don't think any of us know. Now, what could they do to stop us? Not much of anything, because they're defeated. If they put tanks up there to protect the Missile City site, along comes the A-10 Warthogs with the 30-millimeter cannon and armor-piercing incendiary shells. They get a lock on the tank, they go, 10, 12 bullets would go out, 30 millimeter, hit the tank, penetrate the armor stuff, fires, blow it up, they'd all be dead. So they would just take the tanks out. They could drop bombs on the tank, shoot rockets on the tank. Their tanks are not modern, with reactive body armor and radar shooting guns and missiles at the incoming projectile. They don't have that. Their tanks aren't going to do that. Their tanks are going to get blown up and die. That's it. Okay, they can put them there, but it's suicide. Can they put troops there and hide the troops? Yeah. How? Well, this is scary. They dig a tunnel, right? Now they didn't have time to go dig a tunnel that's, 5 kilometers or something like that. I doubt, probably a tunnel you could measure in yards, maybe 300-400 yards, right by the site. How far down? Probably, I would say 6 or 10 feet down. So it'll be immune from simplex basic ordnance, but heavy bombs, 2,000 pounders, even maybe 1,000 would affect them. What they would do, put soldiers in there with an ability to come out suddenly from different locations. Now, if you're doing tunnel work, America knows about it from surveillance flights and surveillance drones, and so does Israel. So they're going to know it's there. And they'll know where it is. And they'll bomb it before the uh, the special forces come in. They'll hit it with 2,000 pounders. And one or two of those hits the tunnel. Goodbye, tunnel. Now, they could build a tunnel 30, 40 feet down, but that's a serious amount of work, and they've only had a few weeks to fix things, okay? And I don't think they would waste their time and energy boring tunnels down very deep. Like if you went and got the tunnel 60 feet deep, oh, you got a big headache now. But I don't think they did that. I don't think so. The only purpose of the tunnel would be to protect the missile site from special forces, but it's a bad idea because it could be bombed. So what else could they do? They could put inside a missile site. I don't know if they can. Maybe they could put 8 or 10 soldiers with machine guns and RPGs and some light and light heavy weapons or something in there. And when the special forces come in, they can engage them. But I don't know how many lives it sustain in a missile city in the long run, so they might be reluctant. So I don't think they're going to do much with the tunnels. They might try to keep soldiers in there to shoot at the special forces, and that would slow things down, I'm sure. They'd have to make hatches that they could shoot out from, openings. And those openings would just get bombed by the planes. So it's a loser for them, What they might try in desperation is something they did in the past. Take civilian human shields, which they recruit from the mosque, right? No problem. And women, children, men, old people, young people, baby carriages. And they have a missile city. They bring 50 of them out, and they have them camp out on the missile site in tents or whatever, and they feed them and bring them water and stuff like that, right? And now they're arming their civilians. They're teaching them how to use the guns on the internet, on television. So they just give them AK-47s and a few hundred rounds. And something like this, they'd probably give them each 1,000 rounds. And maybe 2,000. Iran's not using their bullets up. They got mountains of bullets, and they put them on the site with AK-47. So now special forces got to get them off. Well, these are no longer civilian human shields. These are now become militia. So special forces would probably do nothing. The helicopters with a megaphone would tell them to disperse, or we're going to destroy you. And they would probably shoot at the helicopter, and they wouldn't disperse, and then the helicopter could just mow them down, or they could tear gas them, and then the special forces could come with tear gas masks and drag them off. But why would they risk a thing like that? It would. It's too dangerous for special forces. They got guns. You got to shoot them. So if they're not armed and they just put them there as civilians, the special forces would just come. Likely tear gas them, and if they don't leave, then they would come in with, the plastic twist handcuffs, the ties, and handcuff them and just escort them out and put them in another area, or probably just leave them there in another area, and just go to work. So they could try it, but I don't think it's going to do much good. So the special forces is probably the way to penetrate into their missile fortresses, because we tried, Israel and America both tried bombing them, and in one case, Israel said it took 250 to 300 conventional bombs to take out the missile city. And that's a lot of bombs and a lot of aircraft time and stuff like that. Would Israel also send special forces? I'm quite sure. The special forces would be so heavily guarded and protected by the aircraft. It would be, I don't know how if the Iranians launched missiles at their own missile site while the special forces were there, that might work. I don't know what the fix for that is. I don't know. That's a problem, and I don't know how they're going to solve it. There's a lot of ways to solve it or not solve it. I don't know what they're going to do. So what would happen with the Abrahamic Accords if they actually go through with it, which I think they will? Okay, what would it do for Israel? I'm not worried about what it would do for them. What would it do for Israel? Well, I'll talk about it. They would be making investments in Israel. Why? Millions of things. One of the things they would do is buy. Israel builds a lot of businesses up and then sells them. Okay. All right, so that's definitely something that can happen. All right. But a lot of people buy these startups. They wouldn't. I don't know what they would want to invest in here. Hotels, housing, office buildings. I don't know. But they would make investments. Okay, that's part of it. They would buy a lot of military stuff from Israel. Okay, not just the Iron Dome, or the Iron Beam, or the David Sling, or the Arrow 2, but they would buy a lot of electronic surveillance stuff. We make Navy vessels, we make drones, we make all kinds of stuff. Stuff that nobody's going to tell you we make. We also make good rifles and pistols and many things. So they'll buy a lot of things from us. Okay? We sell helmets. They're $400,000 helmets for pilots. Okay? And it lets the pilot sit there and look straight ahead, and he holographically sees everything 360 degrees. We put that in a jet. It's a retro option. You know, we put it in after. And we train their pilots. So there's a number of things we can do. One of the things that would happen is these countries, not all of them, but some of them could sell us food, but not a whole lot of them, but some food, particularly fish, like Egypt has a lot of fish. They sell food to us now, but it would really be, Egypt's one of the countries. A lot of food would come from Egypt to Israel, cheap. But other countries that are in the Persian Gulf, if Iran keeps dumping oil in the Persian Gulf because they got no place to put it, and they're not going to shut their oil wells off, well, then there's going to be no fish in the Persian Gulf pretty soon. That may have already happened. I don't know. I doubt it, but it could be on the way. So you get fishermen all over the place in these countries, and they could be selling fish to us, but it's going to be cheap. We get fish from South America now. But what's wrong with that picture? First of all, things are not that cheap in South America. They're cheaper than America or Europe, but not that cheap. You got a lot of shipping, okay? They flash freeze the fish, like on the fishing vessel, and then they keep it frozen, and then, okay, so they do that. The rabbis go and kosher the operation, and there is, okay, I'm not going to get into the kosher thing, it's insane, but okay, they kosher it. There's clean and unclean. I'm not going to get into it. Okay, they kosher the fish, and they ship it to Israel. So they mark the price of the fish up, the rabbis, with that junk they put on, probably at about 20%, maybe 25%. Yeah, that's horrible. Netanyahu lets them do it. When we get rid of him, they're going to open up the declaration of kosher to all the rabbis. So you have Reform and Conservative and Light Orthodox and Ultra Orthodox, and they'll be able to issue kosher certificates to restaurants and food establishments and stuff, and that will create a competitive situation, and the price of getting the rabbis to make your site kosher will drop tremendously. Now, there's a lot of people in Israel that think that salvation is based on works, and they will only want to buy the ultra-Orthodox or maybe the Orthodox certified kosher. But, you know, anyway, it'll be cheap food. Egypt could give us things other than just fish, but the fish would be a big thing. You would also get, from these countries, they make clothing and other things cheap. Cheap, right? They lots of stuff, okay? We'll buy stuff from them, and they'll buy stuff from Israel. What is it that they're going to get from Israel other than the weapons type stuff? Medical. Israel makes a lot of drugs here in Israel. They're very high quality, okay? They'll buy that, okay? I'm sure. We have lots of medical devices and treatment technologies and stuff like that they'll buy. Okay? They'll They're not going to buy Israeli cars or motorcycles. We don't have any. They're not going to buy Israeli planes. We don't have any. Okay? They're not going to buy Israeli clothes because they don't wear that kind of stuff. And, you know, that kind of stuff that the people wear, or they do wear, they'll get it. They'll get the cheap stuff out of China and stuff like that, like we do. Okay? Um, can they get us meat and stuff? In some cases, yeah, meat will come in, chicken, eggs. See, you can transport by ground. They're probably heavily used by air, but they could also do by ground or railroad. If we got railroad hookups, which we could probably set up if we don't. So, what I'm telling you is the trade. What would this do for Israel? I don't like to admit it, but I will, because it's the truth. It would jack the economy of Israel. Whoop. I mean, whoop, very high. We have a lot of natural gas out in the Mediterranean. I think they call it Leviathan. And we sell some to Egypt quite a bit, and we could sell to other people too. So we could sell them LNG. Now, a lot of these characters got LNG, you know. We could sell them water desalinators. You're talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars there. They buy those a lot. You know, I don't know, but they got a lot of them already, but they probably need servicing, replacing over time. There's a tremendous amount of things. Now, what about tourism? Well, the countries that Turkey is one of the countries. Now, Erdogan is probably going to go for this. Okay? Why do I think Erdogan's going to go for this? Because he still trades with us anyway. Okay? He makes believe he doesn't, and he does. It's a lot of food you can get from Turkey, but this time Turkey's going to be buying from us. So, you know, Egypt's got a lot of people. Turkey got a lot of people. Saudi's got some. Jordan, we're already friends with Jordan. Okay, so it's going to have some effect, but not going to be big. Okay. Oman, I don't think is in it. Kuwait, I don't think is in it. And they're small. Qatar is going to be worth a lot, okay? Bahrain and UAE are already in it, you know? So, let me give you the whole 6 so I don't get it messed up. Okay, so it's Saudi Arabia. That's very big because they spend big money on many things. And they'll be making investments in Israel. I can't tell you exactly what they'll invest in, but they'll invest. They'll probably go after high tech or weapons, okay? Qatar, Egypt, Pakistan, but Pakistan's out. Turkey and Jordan. Okay, so the big look, Saudi's gonna spend, Qatar's gonna spend, Egypt, yeah, Turkey, some, Jordan, some, not much. UAE is very happy with Israel because we helped them shoot down incoming missiles and drones during the attacks, and they're they already have Abrahamic Accords with us, and they're very enthusiastic about paying us back. They were shocked that we actually came and helped them, and they want to pay us back. So this could actually cause a shortage of workers in Israel. It may mean that Israel starts trying to import workers from other countries, like America and Europe, that are Jews to come here. It could get that big. But I don't think prophetically time is going to allow it to get that big. But it's going to create a knitting together of these states with Israel, and Israel is going to evolve more into the role of protecting them. And that will come to pass only if Iran is dead and gone, or if Iran has agreed to cut back on their missiles and all the other stuff, and they'll never agree to that. So it's probably more like Iran's dead and buried. So then the thought is that America doesn't have to come over here and conduct the wars. They can just have Israel, slap nations down. The whole problem is Iran and the proxies. So Israel has destroyed one proxy, Hamas. Syria was a proxy. It's out of the game. But if it gets back into the game, Israel could swat them down. And Iraq is sort of out of the game, but if they go back in, they could get swatted down. And Yemen, without Iran, I don't know what they're going to do. They're not going to. It's a dead end for them, but we know Yemen is Edom, and Edom gets destroyed, and that's what's going to happen. Now, it appears to me that Jordan is Moab and Ammon. Ammon is North Jordan, where the capital is. They become friends with Israel, which is what we're talking about now, and they make it. The Saudis, when you see the attack in Gog and Magog in Ezekiel 38, 39, they're talking to the invaders and they're saying, what'd you do? Come to take us a great spoil, gold, silver, cattle. So they're not in it. You understand? They're not on our border either. So when the two witnesses burn the nations up on the right hand and the left, it's the ones right on the border. Okay? So it's an interesting thing. We're going to go deeper into that in a minute. I think that these states may actually listen to Trump. Now, if Egypt doesn't want to, Egypt is just politely saying no, but they might want it. I don't know. Turkey will probably go along with it. When you take the tourism a little bit from all these countries, if all Pakistan's out, if all five of them go in, yeah, it's going to up tourism. I looked at tourism numbers for the last 3 months, not for the month of May, April, and back 3 months. And March was 9,000 tourists. 9,000. I mean, April was 34 or 36,000. It's that bad. This Netanyahu moron killed. You'd usually get tourist figures of 300,000, 200, 400, a lot. And, I mean, not getting anything. So Trump is basically saying, if you don't do Abrahamic Accords, you don't have any input into these negotiations with Iran anymore. which means they can't tell Trump to postpone the attacks. That's input. They don't have input. So Trump's not stupid. He's not going to let them keep having input and hope they join the Abrahamic Accords after it's over, because he knows they won't. So he's bearing down. Now, will this help Netanyahu get reelected? Yeah, it will. It will. I would rather not have any Abrahamic Accords, but they're doing it, and it's going to produce money. And how does Satan corrupt? With money. With money. That's his biggest tool, money. When the people have money, they have a false sense of power. They have a false sense of happiness and security. It's false, it's not real, but they have it. You know, they could obtain sexual favors from people. They get status. People become their friends for the wrong reason. Stuff like that. I forgot. I have a prayer request for BB. Bravo. I'm glad I remembered. Prayer request for BB. BB is rather ill. Many things are wrong. And this person's in the web of going to, 3 or 4 times a month, going to different doctors, and they're doing different surgeries and procedures, and they when they do this, they start slipping. The anesthesia's no good. All these things, drag them. Old person, cancer survivor, and a lot of problems. So pray for BB to get restored health, for BB, for restoration, health restoration, for BB. Okay? All right. Now, with the investments, that's not going to filter down to the low people in Israel, the regular people, because it's going to go to the company, the Satan bot companies, and it's just going to go to Satan bots. And the employees may get benefit of some sort, But the Satan bots always try to make sure the regular people don't get anything, or as little as they can get away with. We'll be able to fly over their airspace with civilian flights. That will be somewhat convenient. I don't know what the Muslims from these countries, if they come here, what they're going to do here. I don't know what would attract for business. Yeah, they would like that. They'd like the food because it's basically Arab food. Most everything you get here is Arab food. Not all, but most. I don't like it. I don't care for Arab food. I eat it. But believe me, it's low down on my list of desired types of culinary delight. The Arab food is way the heck down. But that's what you get here. In Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, you could get not that type of thing. But my wife cooks food that's not Arab oriented. We don't care for it that much at all. It's not our thing one bit, Now, there are nice Arab restaurants, but with all the wars, you can't go there. But we used to go there, and they were very nice, and you'd have a nice meal there. But the tensions when there was no war were there. And when you go there and there's a war, I wouldn't want to try it. Too much tension. So Saudi Arabia would benefit a lot from Israel tech, all sorts of tech, computers, internet, cyber attack prevention, all kinds of stuff, right? Water, you know, agriculture, health, cyber health, I said that, medicine, I said that, and defense, um, and so there'd be a lot of money coming from them. Qatar, um, they would basically be looking to find good, shrewd investments to make money. Um, the Israel startups would be for them energy, they'd be very interested in energy, medical tech, um, cyber tech, all of that. Um, Jordan wouldn't really go too far because we're already dealing with them, but it would expand. Um, Energy, water, um, industrial zones, different exports. It would grow, but it wouldn't be, you know, it's already there to some extent. Saudi and Qatar could be massive. And the UAE is kicking into gear. That could be massive. Um, Egypt and Turkey could be very substantial. It would make Israel, if Iran bit the dust or made a deal, or you know, a real deal, not a dummy deal. Um, Israel's security would rise in the eyes of the people that rate countries. The currency would go up in value, and the investment status, you know, for putting money in Israel banks and stock market and stuff like that would rise. It would get stronger. So it would it would help Israel, but it's a lousy way to get there. And it looks like it's going to be happening. So you can, you know, we can do a lot about it, but not, we can complain about it, but it's not going to make it go away. See, our food costs are not low in Israel. This is a real problem. Okay. And 30% of Israelis, or maybe it's down to 25%, have food insecurity, and that's coming from the high prices. So we got to get that fixed. And this could maybe not be a final solution, but it's definitely a helpful solution. Turkey, Egypt make clothing that would be cheap. So it's going to do a lot for the economy if it goes, and it looks like it's going to go. I can't imagine it igniting tourism. Okay. If we get rid of Iran, tourism will ignite on its own, and the tourism that we value, I'll tell you where we see. You see people from Asia coming here, all over Asia. You see Taiwan, you see the Koreans, you see Japanese, you see Chinese, you see Filipino, you see them all. So Asia is good. Asia will be feeding us tourists. Europe, oh man, loads. Okay, where do they come from? From Europe? Oh gosh, you see a lot from the UK, Christians. You see it from France, Spain, the Catholics sometimes, Portugal, not often, pretty small. Germany, not so big, but they come. Germany's the desired country for the Israelis to go to when they leave Israel. They try to go to Germany. Now, why am I telling you Germany? Why not am I telling you why? Because a lot of them have ancestry that goes back to Hitler and the Nazis. And they can get German passports if their parents were affected by the Nazis, displaced, punished. They didn't have to go into a camp, just displaced or punished or something, confiscated assets, lots of things. And if that happened, then the parents and the children would be able to get a German passport, which is a citizenship. And if the parents get a German passport and citizenship, then their children automatically get it, and their spouse gets it. So that's why they go into Germany. There's a lot of them that are running around with a German passport, which is an EU passport. So you could live anywhere in the EU and work there. But they seem to like Germany because German people are letting them come in, letting them get citizenship, and they feel more comfortable. Germany has, I don't know what great shape their economy is. I know Germany's very expensive to live in, very expensive. Like, you go out to eat and you're going to get a knockwurst, which is a deluxe hot dog, and some French fries with mayonnaise on it, which is the way they eat it in a lot of places in Europe. They put mayonnaise on the French fries. We put ketchup on, right? They put mayonnaise. Have you ever tried it with mayonnaise? They sell ketchup mixed with mayonnaise. You know that? Heinz even sells it. I believe Heinz sells it. But I suggest that the next time you have French fries, salt them, which is pretty normal, right? And put your ketchup on the side. Take your glob of ketchup here. And then on the other side of the plate, put a glob of mayonnaise. Dip your French fry in the ketchup and taste it. Take another clean French fry, just with salt on it. Dip it in the mayonnaise and taste it. You might be surprised. Now, if your mayonnaise is ice cold, that's not a great idea. Most of us keep the mayonnaise in the fridge because we're going to have a cold cut sandwich, right? What do we mean? We're going to take pieces of bread. We're going to put some salami, bologna, corned beef, roast beef, name your meat, on there. Put in some lettuce and tomato, which is going to be cold, whatever else you want to put in there, and then smear it with mustard, close the sandwich, and eat it. Is it good? Yeah, it's real good. We like it. You like it. Yeah. I have done these sandwiches where I put ketchup and mustard and mayonnaise on them, all three. I think it works. But it's a little, childish, but it does work. But People in Europe put French fries. They dip them in mayonnaise. I also like dipping them in a ketchup that has cayenne pepper in it. That's another way to go. So yeah, so they go to Germany now. Some of the food in Germany they could adapt to. Um, are there a lot of people that are Israeli that speak German? No. If you speak Yiddish, can you get by with German? Well, yeah. It's sort of like you speak Spanish, can you deal with Portuguese? Yeah. Not easy. Yeah, you can make it. Okay. What are some analogies? Well, if you speak American English, can you get by in Ireland or Scotland? UK, is easy, but Scotland, Ireland, the dialogue could, the words could be a little different, but you're going to get it, okay? Someone says open the boot of the car, you might not understand that it's the trunk, but you'll learn that stuff easily and quickly, and someone explains it to you once, you get it. I think the bonnet is the hood where the engine is. They call that the bonnet, So yeah, you can deal with that, Australia has a little bit of difference. South Africa is going to speak English. They're going to have a little bit of a difference. Canada is going to speak English, a little bit of a difference. But you get it, Spanish and Portuguese maybe is a little more extreme. If you know Yiddish and someone starts coming at you with German, can you probably understand them and make them understand you? Yeah. When my father grew up, it was a long time ago. He's passed many years. He was in New York, and his father came from Russia, my grandfather, and the mother also came. My grandmother came from Russia, and they were living in New York, and it was the neighborhoods the Jews were living in were back then speaking Yiddish. My grandfather came, I think, in 1913. So, it's over 100 years ago. It's a whole other, they were speaking Yiddish. And when I grew up as a kid in the Bronx, they were still speaking Yiddish. These people were still alive. They came out of the camps, some of them, they were all talking Yiddish in their neighborhood. They bought the Forward newspaper, which was a Yiddish newspaper. They used to read that all the time. Yiddish uses Hebrew characters, but they don't mean the same thing. Just like France uses, and Spain, and they use English characters, but they don't say the same thing. Okay, versus China or Japan, which uses weird stuff. I mean, I look at Japanese, and it's just, I don't know what the heck I'm looking at. I don't have any idea. Chinese, Korean, I don't have any idea. I don't have a clue. I don't know how to, I can count in Japanese, ni, si, san, yo, but I don't know from martial arts, but I don't know what, anything about that. Okay, so going to Germany they don't know Yiddish. That stuff in Israel is, if you go back about 35 years, 30 years ago, even 25 years ago, they were still talking Yiddish here, but not anymore. They're not talking Yiddish. It's real. Do they know it? Yeah, the ultra-Orthodox do. They know Yiddish. A lot of them use Yiddish to speak in the house because they see Hebrew as a holy language, and they prefer to use Hebrew in the synagogue and the yeshiva, and in the house and in the streets use Yiddish. But they also know English. If you want to talk to them, they prefer you don't talk to them in Hebrew. They used to be this way. I think they still are. But the Israelis have to talk to them in Hebrew because that's usually the only language they know. But if you go to them in English, they're more than happy to talk to you in English if they know English. And quite a few do. They're really very happy to talk to you. If you come, verstehst Yiddish, they'll start. Verstehst Yiddish means do you understand Yiddish? They'll well, that's what it literally means. It would mean to an American, do you speak Yiddish? That kind of thing. Parlez-vous français? Verstehst Yiddish? Okay, same kind of thing. Parlez-vous? Speak you French? Do you speak French? Okay, so that's not the practice. So they like to go to Germany. I don't know why. The weather in Germany can be beautiful in the warm weather. They got the forests and the lakes and stuff. But in the cold weather, it's a bitter cold. It's a rather expensive place to live. I don't know. Maybe they find work there easy. Almost all the people Germans are highly literate people, okay? And almost all the Germans will speak English. So the Israelis that go there usually learn English, and that's what they do. They go around using English, So, I guess that's why they go there. I don't know. They probably, I don't know what they do there. I don't really know much about it, and I don't know how many there are there, and but I imagine it's probably 50, 100,000, something like that. Why they go there? Maybe they feel safe because Germany is one of those countries that doesn't have such a heavy Muslim influence going on like the UK does, right? They're not anti-Semitic like Spain is. You know what I'm trying to say? So they probably like that. They feel more comfortable there. And Germany can defend itself. Um, the German police are pretty efficient, okay? They can get in a lot of trouble if they shoot somebody in the wrong circumstances. They're armed, they're vigilant. They might also like driving on the Autobahn. You can go as fast as you want, but you could also kill yourself on the Autobahn. From what I've seen, I never drove the Autobahn. What I've seen is people run probably 80 or 90, 75, 80. They're not running 120. First of all, when you go, the difference between, let's say, 75 and 100 miles an hour, the amount of attention you have to dedicate, it's not relaxing at 100, okay? Now, I remember when I worked in law enforcement, dumbbell cops would sit there at 100 with the left hand on the wheel, the right hand draped over the bench seat in the front, and they were so used to running at 100, they'd run like that, and I'd be sitting in the front next to the guy, and I'd be saying, oh, yeah, I got this guy running 100 all the time, and some cops get in the habit when they hit the brake to get ready to swerve away from the cars in front of them because they're afraid the police car brakes are going to give out. So obviously that's happened to them. But you're running at night and they're running at a high speed and they're looking at 7-Elevens and gas stations while they're running 100 to see if anything looks unusual, like it's being stuck up or robbed, right? And they do it. Is it safe? No. Do they do it anyway? Yeah. Do they still do it? Now it's frowned on these days. They don't want the cop going more than 20 over the limit. Okay? Do they? Now, I don't know. In some places that's not the case. Because they chase speeders now on the freeways and the cop will go 130. Usually their cars give out at about 130. Yeah, some of these state troopers got hot cars and they rig the suspensions, they rework the suspension and they put, high-speed tires on the car, $400 a tire and, stuff like that. And they could actually run, even 150, but you're endangering the public when you do this. If somebody changes lanes on you and you're running 100 and you got a good car, like what is a good car? A BMW, a Mercedes, a Porsche, a Ferrari, a Lamborghini, one of those real exotic cars, something like that. If someone changes lanes on you, right? You've got to rub speed off quick, okay? And if you're driving a Cadillac Escalade or a Lincoln Navigator, boy, I'd say the most you ever want to go in those cars is 80. Because the brakes could be a little on the slow side if you're going more than that. And the cars, the suspensions, the stability, at 80 it's over. So if you're running 70, 73, 74, 75, you're okay with those cars. But I wouldn't want to run 100 on the Autobahn with one of them. They're not safe enough. But a Mercedes would be. And you could rub the speed off if you had the right tires and you kept your brakes in good shape, the pads. And, you could be okay. A Porsche, even better, Porsche, you could rub the speed off like nothing, you just, it's like you drove into quicksand, But you've got to pay a lot more attention. You've got to keep your hands lightly on the wheel. You've got to watch. You've got to watch your mirrors to see who's coming up on your rear and who's in your right, because people will pass you in the right. And, it's a stress. If you're going like everybody else is running 80 and you're running 80, it's more relaxing, And if you're going to start trying to run 125, it's literally dangerous, You could, as a cop, you can go do what you want. You could run red lights and, for the most part, get away with it. You can make illegal U-turns. You could cross the grass dividers on interstates. And you could do all kinds of crap, and when you get stopped, they'll, comes over to the car, you just have your badge out, you show them the badge and the ID card, that's it. That's what I would do. I didn't say anything, I just showed the badge and the ID card, and that's it. I never had anybody chew me out, but I know people that worked in law enforcement that did get chewed out, but they were doing stupid things. So what's a stupid thing? Driving through a small town of, 5,000 people, and they got a speed limit of, 35 through the town, and they go through at 60, and the guy jumps on his motorcycle and comes after you, and he's yelling and screaming, and you show, I never did that, but they would show their credentials and they'd say, You can't go through my town like that. You ever do that again, I'm gonna lock you up or I'll write you a ticket. You don't drive through somebody's town like that. What's wrong with you? I gotta protect this town. I gotta keep the people from speeding. What if you hit somebody? That kind of thing. So he yells at you, but they're probably not gonna give you a ticket. But they could. But they probably won't. But they'll yell at you. Um, but the thing that I learned when I first was doing it, I remember I was a deputy sheriff. I was driving home from work. I had the uniform on. I was going fast. I had a Mercury Cougar with a very powerful engine. They said it was 300 horsepower, but it was probably more like 350 or 360. It was a Cleveland motor that was really fast, and I was trying to move around. Usually cops would see me and I'd have the uniform on. They wouldn't even bother pulling me, And I was, it was something. I was going fast that, people don't know who you are as a civilian car. And I had to get out of the guy's way and I had to swerve over and there was a parked car because I had to go into the lane that was like for park and I had a slender brake. I had a close experience and then I realized that yeah, you're not going to get a ticket, but you could get killed. And you could wreck your car, So, some people don't learn that, Like you can turnarounds on the interstate. The state police and the highway patrols do it all the time, but you got to be real careful with that one. If you're driving a marked police car, the people aren't going to mess with you, okay? 99% of the people are not going to mess with you. They're going to slow down and let you get in front of them and accelerate. But if you do it with a civilian car, people are going to be really nasty and try to cut you off and stuff. They don't know what's going on, And they'll also phone you in. They'll say, hey, I just saw a guy across the divider, And then the cops don't know who you are, and if they got nothing better to do, they'll go out and look for the car. If there's somebody gives them the plate and a description, they might pull them over. Usually they won't bother, but they might, Most of the time you see somebody running a red light, it'll be a cop. How many people run red lights that aren't cops? Getaway. I mean, if somebody murdered somebody or they really did something bad and they're really panicked and they want to go fast to get out of there, they're not running a red light. Somebody that's got themselves or somebody in the car that's bleeding or hemorrhaging or giving birth or having something really wrong with them physiologically may run red lights to get to a hospital. But it's pretty unusual, Okay. An Iranian official talking tells the Washington Post, the opening of the Strait of Hormuz will be carried out in stages. This is how they're talking. First, the clearance of mines from the strait. Now, I don't know who's going to do that. I assume them. The lifting of the American blockade. So they're going to clear the mines. Then they want America to lift the blockade. And now listen what they want. And the release of frozen assets worth $12 billion. And they also want the sanctions. I mean, it's just like, who wrote this? Bugs Bunny, The Memorandum of Understanding does not include agreement on the nuclear issue, but only a commitment to conduct negotiations on the matter later. Do you understand? They want $12 billion and the blockade removed and sanction relief just to sit down and talk about the nuclear stuff and they don't want the spent uranium, the enriched uranium being turned over to America or anything like this. So what are they giving Trump? Nothing. You understand? That's why Trump struck them. They're not. They don't want to give anything to Trump. They want to get a lot of money out of this. Okay. They want to still control the Persian Gulf, so they could extract tolls. They're not talking about the internet cables anymore, but we don't know what that means. They did say they were turning their internet on again for the citizens, but they can turn it off. It'd take them a few hours to shut it off, at most, maybe a few minutes. The Ebola outbreak is now the third largest in history. This is in Africa. We've seen in the last 25, 30 years, 5 or 6 of these Ebolas. I don't know. It's not a nice thing, but it probably clear up. I don't know. They're telling us Israel killed 890 Palestinians in Gaza since we set up the ceasefire. Netanyahu, this is very curious. Netanyahu showed up at Hadassah Hospital in Jerusalem. It's a very, very good hospital. And the cover story that they're telling us is he went in late in the evening, and the Prime Minister's office is telling us that he went in for a dental treatment. Now, does this happen? Do people go to hospitals for dental work? They do. There's an occasional person that's really scared about getting their teeth worked on, and they need to get knocked out. So what usually happens is the dentist knocks them out or gets an anesthesiologist to come into the office and knock them out. They usually give them an IV that makes them feel very, elated, like intoxicated and sleepy, and they don't use general anesthesia. They don't need to, because once they get the guy goofy and he's like twilight dozing off, they inject them with the lidocaine in the gum where they're going to be working, and they can rub that gum with a lidocaine. It's like a gooey thing, like a cream or something, on there, and wait a few seconds, which the dentists hate to do. But if they wait like 2-3 minutes or something like that, it's going to get numb. What the bums usually do is they rub it on you and then go right with the needle right away, and it needs a few minutes to work. And then it numbs the gums, and then with the sleeping, they don't feel it. So the only reason somebody would really go to a hospital would be the dental work requires general anesthesia. I don't know what the heck they're working on. When they do general anesthesia, they're usually putting intubation in you, okay? They use that lidocaine again, and they coat your throat with it, and they have a wrench they open up, and they put a tube down so they can get the oxygen and the gases into your trachea to get into your lungs, and it's kind of like does the breathing for you. general anesthesia to some extent paralyzes you. And they do that, and how are they going to work on your tooth when you got the intubation in there? I guess they move it around. They tape it to the side or something. I guess they move it. But this is for real serious stuff. Now, when they do they put those dental implants in. They don't do that in the hospital. They do that in the dentist's office. So I mean, there are procedures where some of these specialist dentists do work in hospitals with real anesthesia in an operating room. But do I believe that that's what's going on with Netanyahu? I doubt it. What would I lean to more? Since the High Court's asking for his medical records, I would think that it could be something to do with his cancer, which we're being told he has cancer. Or he had initially an external pacemaker, and then he had an issue, and then they put an internal pacemaker in there, which is much more effective. So they might have to, I guess a pacemaker needs a battery change every now and then, right? So if it's inside you, they've got to make an opening, get in there, and they probably unscrew a plate very easily accessed and open it, take the battery, throw it away, put a new battery in, close it up, It could be that. I don't know what it is, but it's unusual that somebody would go to the hospital for a dental procedure. Root canals, they do in the office. Periodontal work, they do in the office. Cosmetic work, they do in the office. Implants, they do in the office. I don't know, what the heck is going on. Maybe if someone had trauma where they didn't have a seatbelt and they smacked their teeth into the steering wheel in a car in an accident. I don't believe it, though. I'm slow to believe it. I don't know. So when does he get out of the hospital and what's going on? I don't know. Right now, they can't do the vote of no confidence in the Knesset on Netanyahu because they don't have 61 votes. They need 61 votes out of the 120 in the Knesset to move ahead with setting up a new vote, and they can't produce 61 votes for that. So I think the ultra-Orthodox were trying, and they didn't make it. So what happens next? Well, we got a scheduled regular election for the Prime Minister in October 27th. So normal circumstances, there's a 90-day lag from, they call it dissolve the Knesset, a vote of no confidence, and then the Prime Minister becomes a very reduced in power, like a custodial Prime Minister. He can't initiate new legislation. He can't do much. And they give him 90 days for campaigning. So that would put him in June, July, August. There would be early September election, which is like, 6 weeks earlier. there's not a whole lot of motivation. There is a way they can do an immediate uh, vote, but that would require there's a vote of no confidence, and then they would say to the Knesset, "Can anybody here raise 61 votes?" And if some other parties say, "Yeah, here," and then they could, if it's an emergency with wars, they could swap it out right away. That's my understanding. Um, so it doesn't look like Netanyahu is in for a vote of no confidence, but the ultra orthodox are shopping for some political party entity to um, take them in. But taking them in is very specialized politically because they're going to catch a lot of heat for that because they want draft exemption. The ultra orthodox, the Haredim, really want to get rid of Netanyahu before the regular October 20 something election, which could enable him um, to win. They don't want they feel betrayed by him. He promised them he would protect them from being in the draft if they gave him support, and they did for like almost 4 years, and he can't do it. And they're probably thinking he knew he couldn't do it, and he just went through the motions knowing it wouldn't work, and now they're mad. And that's probably what happened. The IDF soldiers up near Lebanon are doing improvisation to protect from these new drones that are controlled by a very small cable, fiber optic cable, but they have a very limited range, and they're putting different kinds of netting up to protect them from the drone. So the drone would, if they were going to try to come down on the soldiers, they would get caught up in the net, and it wouldn't explode right near the soldiers. So um, it's helping them respond to the net, to the threat. It's good. Um, it's a dangerous drone. You can't electronically jam it because it's receiving its control by wire, but it has a very short range because it's unraveling the wire. So all they can do with that is hit right at the border. Israel has a new operation called Arrows of Fire. They really make good names, you gotta hand it to them. Which will include strikes in Beirut. So we're going to be hitting Beirut heavy. Probably already started today. Um, and this is, um, the way it looks, I'm rather certain this is a Netanyahu correctly wanting to make the ability of Hezbollah to attack us as little as possible or nothing. So when the Iranians are being attacked, we'll be attacking them. And they can't launch Hezbollah at us because Hezbollah ain't no more. So I'm not understanding why the Iranian all of a sudden decided to restore internet for the civilians. Maybe they have demolished the protesters' movement so significantly that they're not worried about it. But um, it does open the door for them to make reports and send videos of the attacks um, out to the public, and that would, of course, hurt them. Let me look at the live stream, see what we got questions or anything in there. Um, turn on. Oh, now it's on. All right, let's see if we got anything here that I should deal with, questions or something. It helps the channel if you hit the thumbs up button, and it helps if you put something in the chat, anything, just put the word dog in there or cat or anything. They speak Yiddish, yeah, in the Hasidic or the ultra Orthodox, they speak Yiddish, and around the world too, in Europe and stuff like that, they do it. Yiddish is a very, very funny language. It really is. They have ways of what we used to call, when I was a kid, sounding somebody down, you know? That would be insulting the person. Yiddish has fantastically funny ways of doing that. And some of the ways they do it are nasty too. Like, you know, you don't name, the Jewish people don't name children after relatives unless the relative is deceased. Okay? So they, you know, when they insult somebody, they'll say, may they name many children after you, which basically means they're telling them to drop dead. See how they do it? You know, they're very nasty. They have a phrase that is, it says Vegahagen, and that, I don't know how you put it in English. You can't. Anything in English just detracts from it, or in Hebrew, or in French, or anything. It just basically is, you should go get killed in the worst way. But it's weakening. I mean, it's not strong enough what I just, you can't really translate it, you know. And then they got another one, Vega Shasin, you should be, you know, killed by bullet, by shot. Shasin is a shot, you know, a bullet. You know, and then they got one, gay Ophicles, you should be going on crutches. They got the cursing and the sounding people down is amazingly astute with them, you know. but they're kind of funny, like gay Vec, go away. You know, they say that to people, you know, gay Vec. Um, they got a phrase called a yenta, a word. What is a yenta? A busybody that wants to know everybody's business. Then they got another one called yenta calabenta. That's a super yenta. You know, you know, they got crazy. You know, I mean, it's just crazy stuff. Um, it just it's a really weird language. It comes from Russian, Polish, German, and Hebrew, not English. So my father got, because he grew up in the neighborhood with his father where they were all speaking Yiddish, and he was going to school, and they want the kids to learn English, so they would talk English to the kids, so the kids would have an easy time in the public school system. But then my grandfather realized that my father didn't know Yiddish because they were talking Yiddish in the house, English in the house for his sake, but they also spoke Yiddish. So anyway, what he did is he sent them to school, after school for a while, I don't know, a year maybe, where there was a guy that had a little storefront and kids, they sent their kids there, and he taught them Yiddish. So then when my father went to college, he took German in college, and he flew right through it because he knew Yiddish. You know? So when I was a kid, we'd watch the World War II movies, which were black and white, from, you know, about Germany, and they, to make them seem realistic, they would have the German spy or the German general, the colonel or whatever. They would talk in German, and they would give you subtitles to make you think it was more realistic, right? So he used to be able to translate the German, you know. He also took French in high school, in college or high school also. He did that too. Because I know I took French, and he helped me with my French. But he also took German. So when you know, I'm so old, no kidding. When I was in high school, they were teaching Latin as a language. I'm not kidding. They had Latin in the high school. Kids that wanted to be doctors and pharmacists were studying Latin. Now, Latin for centuries has been a dead language, which means it's just an academic language. But doctors would learn Latin, and the pharmacists would learn Latin. So they would write the prescriptions in Latin. So the idea was the common junkie wouldn't be able to go print a prescription pad and you know just make prescriptions up, you know. They wouldn't know Latin. That was the thought. That went away, I think, by the 80s or maybe the 70s even. I think by the 70s that was done away with. But the doctors that were going to medical school in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s were doing Latin still, maybe in the 50s even. You know, they used to have, I can remember when I was young, they still ran around. You had eye, ear, nose, and throat doctor, right? Eye, ear, nose, and throat doctor. Because the work on the eyes, they didn't have much for the eyes back then. They really weren't doing eye surgery very often or anything like that, you know. In the older days, which even went on in the 70s into the 80s, they by the 80s they had cataract lenses, so they would cut the guy's lens out of their eye, and then they would sew in a permanent lens in the eye. But before they had those permanent lenses they could put in the eye, the people would have to get cataract glasses after. So the cataract would cloud up their vision. They wouldn't see anything. It'd be all smoky and cloudy. So they would put they would get them glasses that were probably a half-inch thick. They were called cataract lenses. I think they were a plus 20 or some crazy prescription. And they were able to see okay with them. They would drive, they could walk and read stuff. They were able to get around with it, you know. But today they don't do that. They take the lens out and they put, but you know, I've used drops to get the lens, the cataract out of the lens, you know. They've told me I had cataracts going back 40 years, maybe. More, maybe 50 years. A long time. And I used drops and they never materialized. If they do, I just step up the drops. There's a lot of stuff in it, you know. Stuff fills up in the eye and they don't see good. And it's, well, the thing is, if you go to a good eye doctor, one who, you know, some of these characters do 25 cataract procedures in a day. They build up all their cases, and then one day they sit there with a pot of coffee and they start at 7:30, 8 in the morning, and they go boom, and they just keep banging the people out. I've seen the procedure; it doesn't take that long, and they usually anesthetize them, and it's a fast procedure. And if you tell them you want to do one eye at a time, they hate it. You know. And if the guy gets the prescription right, he'll. You see, the cataracts doesn't correct near vision or far vision. It just corrects the cloudiness in the lens. So they still have to compensate. The eye could be too long, and so they got to get a prescription in there to replace it. So if the guy gets it right, you're not going to need glasses. Maybe you would need reading glasses, or you probably wouldn't. Now they got bifocal ones they put in. I don't know how well that works at all, but they got a part. When you want to read, you look down in your lens, and that's a plus. You know, for reading, and you look down, and I don't know how well that works, but I don't know. You could, you know, that's how people trip and fall. They wear bifocals and they fall. They trip over things. People back their car up in the garage and hit the wall. You know, they got the gradiated lenses where the prescription changes. They got like 4 prescriptions in the lens. So the further down in the lens you look, the higher the plus is for reading. That works. People don't tend to back the car up in the wall of the garage with that or trip and fall. But the old bifocals where they have a section like that, people have, it takes a long time to get used to them, and some people just never get used to them. They can be very, you know, dangerous to people. You can fall down a staircase or trip on a curb and bang your head, or say, you know, it's not a good thing. The new ones, the gradiated, they're pretty good. They don't bother people. But when people get bifocal regular contact lenses, what happens is the lens moves around in your eye. Now, if you just got a regular prescription in your eye, the prescription's all over the whole lens. It doesn't matter if the thing swings around or spins or something. If you got an astigmatism prescription in there, same thing, it's in the whole lens, it just doesn't matter, you know. But if you're doing a bifocal contact lens, they gotta weight it so it stays down. The part with the plus in it for the reading stays down at the 6 o'clock position, right? but it doesn't work, and it swings around anyway, and you can't see, and then you could start tripping on steps, or you're cutting meat, and you miss the meat and cut your hand. It really probably wouldn't do that. But you get into depth problems backing the car up, or maybe front parking the car. If you're parking in a tight parking space, you pull up and you tap the guy's car in front of you. You're not going to wreck your car, but it's, so they don't work very well, and yet they've been selling them for 40 years, and I don't think they work well. But people buy them, and okay. Um, so what is the prophetic implications of this with these countries up in the north of Israel? With what's going on. Now remember that Elam could be just in Iran. It doesn't have to be Iraq or parts of Syria or Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Oman. Well, they may not be. They could be and they could not be, because Elam changed geographically several times over the many centuries because of armies and wars and conquests. So it may not have to include Iran, Iraq, and Syria, and the countries, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, etc., would probably be lumped in with Iraq in the old days. Okay, because those countries don't show up in the Bible. There's no Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Oman. Doesn't exist. Saudi Arabia is Arabia, and Jordan, they exist. Okay. Isaiah 60 verse 1, arise, shine, for thy light is come. That means you're going to be emanating forth light. It says thy light, not someone else's light. And the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. For behold, you see it says your light is come. And it could be the glory of the Lord would cause you to emanate forth light if you were around him, but it doesn't say that he's doing it. It says the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. Now the word for risen is going to be interesting. Let's see. Come forth. It could mean rise. Let's see how Strong's favors it. What Strong's wants to use for English. Appear. It could be appear. Okay, so the glory of the Lord's there. You could read Ezekiel 43 and you'll get a lot of insight into the glory of the Lord entering the next temple. It's in Ezekiel 43. For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people. People are in pretty deep darkness now, aren't they? But Jehovah shall arise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee. Glory shall be seen. Let's check some words here. Yeah, it's pretty accurate, except they add the word thee. It says shall be seen. That's ra'an. See or look upon. Look upon is what it says. Thee is added in. His glory, that should be kabod. It is. Okay, let's keep going. And the goyim shall come to thy light. And that's because we're going to be emanating forth light, and that word for light is 216 or. It means light, and a lot of the Israelis would name their kids Ma'or, which means what light. That's a popular name, Ma'or. I wonder who's going to name their dog or cat Ma'or. And the Goyim shall come to thy light, and kings to thy brightness. Okay, the brightness is what is that word really gonna mean? Shining bright light, something like that, I guess. And my stupid iPad changed chapters on me. Lovely. To get it back the hard way. All right. The Goyim shall come to thy light, and kings to the brightness of thy rising. Lift up thy eyes round about, and see, all they gather themselves together. They come to thee. Thy sons shall come from far, and thy daughters shall be nursed at thy side. Then thou shalt see and flow together, and thine heart shall fear and be enlarged, because the abundance of the sea shall be converted to thee, unto the forces of the Goyim. That would be the wealth of the Goyim, shall come unto thee. The multitude of camels shall cover thee. Okay, I don't want to read it all here. Let me just, well, I guess I could. The multitude of camels shall cover thee, and the dromedaries of Midian and Ephah, all they from Sheba shall come. They shall bring gold and incense, and they shall show forth the praise of the Lord. All the flocks of Kedar shall be gathered together unto thee. The rams of Nebaioth shall minister unto thee. They shall come up with acceptance on thine altar, and I will glorify the house of my glory. That's the next temple. Who are these that fly as a cloud and as the doves to their windows? Well, Is that us? Surely the isles shall wait for me, and the ships of Tarshish first, to bring thy sons from far, their silver and their gold with them. So you're going to be the Isles is North, South, Central America, and you're going to be coming with bringing your silver and your gold. So you're going to have wealth with them, to the name of Jehovah Elohim, and to the Holy One of Israel, because he hath glorified thee. Now, why does this say your sons? See, most of the people that are in Israel, their sons are in Israel. You know, it's not. There's not that many of their sons that aren't here. It's talking about the dry bones that are in Israel. Their sons are like us. That's how I see it. And the sons of strangers shall build up thy walls, and their kings shall minister unto thee, for in thy wrath I smote thee, in my favor have I mercy on thee. Oh, how sweet that's going to be. Therefore, just hang on, it's not far, it's at the doors. Therefore thy gates shall be open continually, they shall not be shut day or night, that men may bring unto thee the forces of the Goyim, the wealth of the Goyim, and the forces. They're not bringing armies from the Gourmet, you know, they're bringing, it means wealth. The word for forces is Kavil, Chayil, not Chayil. It could mean an army, but it's not meaning an army. What are they bringing an army here? What's the army going to do? Attack us? You know, it's silly. It's resources, like wealth. Okay, so the best meaning of the word here is wealth. Okay, because it fits in very well. And that their kings may be brought, for the Goyim and kingdom that will not serve thee shall perish. Yea, those nations shall be utterly destroyed. The glory of Lebanon shall come unto thee. So Lebanon is not going to be completely destroyed. The word used here for the glory is kabod. It means glory. It doesn't mean wealth. The fir tree, FIR, and the pine tree and the box together, I guess it's a box tree, together to beautify the place of my sanctuary, and I will make the place of my feet glorious. Let me check it. Well, I'll get it later. The sons of them that afflicted thee shall come, bending unto thee, and all they that despise thee shall bow themselves down at the soles of thy feet, and they shall call thee the city of Jehovah, the Zion, the Holy One of Israel. Okay, that is what this Abrahamic Accords may be the beginning of. Think on that, and I'll be back in a minute. We'll talk about it. See, now why am I the only one that talks like this on the internet? I don't know. I think I know, but I don't want to say it. I wish there was hundreds of people that talk the way I do. Okay, so this is, I believe, the beginning with this Abrahamic Accords. You see, Trump will be used of God and not know he's being used of God, okay? Satan and the demons can't do whatever they want. If they did, they'd wipe out all the Jews in the world a long time ago. There wouldn't be any left. You know, they can't do it. All right. The sons also of them that afflicted thee shall come, bending. Okay, so they're going to be bringing us offerings, which is the wealth. And they got a lot of wealth in these Abrahamic Accord countries. They don't know what to do with it. Now I'm in Isaiah 60, verse 15. Whereas thou hast been forsaken, that's Israel, and hated, that's Israel, so that no man went through thee, I will make thee an eternal excellency, a joy of many generations. Thou shalt also suck the milk of the goyim. I promise you this is allegorical, not literal. And it shall suck the breast of kings, and thou shalt know that I, Jehovah am thy Savior. And let's check that word. It's Yahshua or Yeshua. Salvation, I'm your salvation, or, and thy Redeemer, year of redemption, Redeemer, right? Okay. The mighty one of Yaakov. For brass I will bring gold. You guys, I know you're not going to like it when I say this. Is the glory of the God of Israel. I am the Redeemer, the mighty one of Jacob. Well, you don't read, I'm the mighty one of the churches, the glory of God of the churches. You got to wake up a little bit here, okay? For brass I will bring gold. Great. And for iron I will bring silver. And for wood, brass, and for stones, iron. I will also make thy officers peace, and thine exactors righteousness, tax collectors. Violence shall no more be heard in the land. How about that? And there's no New Jerusalem. It's not the millennium. And wasting nor in thy land, wasting nor destruction within thy borders, but thou shalt call thy walls salvation, and thy gates praise. The sun, S-U-N, Shemesh is the word, shall be no more thy light by day, neither for brightness shall the moon give light unto thee, but the Lord shall be unto thee everlasting light, and thy God thy glory. And so he's talking about the glory of God of Israel being a light, and I don't think we sleep anymore after we have everlasting life. I don't think we have to. That's my hunch. Thy sun shall no more go down, neither shall thy moon withdraw itself, for Jehovah shall be thine everlasting light. What a lot of people don't understand is the glory of God of Israel that's in the temple. God in either Exodus 20 or 23 says he put his name in this glory of God of Israel, which is Michael, the top angel. He put his name inside him so he can be called Jehovah, receive offerings and so forth. So, shall be thy everlasting light, and the days of thy mourning it shall be ended. That's the mourning in Zechariah 12, starting in verse 11. Thy people also shall be all righteous. They shall all know me from the least to the greatest. I will give them a new heart of flesh. I will put my law in their inward parts. It's Jeremiah 31, basically. The work of my hands, that I may be glorified. A little one shall become 1,000, and a small one a strong nation. I, Jehovah, will hasten it in his time. So, the Abrahamic Accords can be the beginning of this. I'm telling you, it's at the doors. The siege is, we're in siege now. I mean, it's not completed, but we're in siege. Can a Jew in Israel go to Gaza? Can you go to Lebanon? Can you go to Syria? Jordan, yeah, you can go to Jordan right now. For how long, I don't know. Could you go to Egypt? Yeah, you can right now. So that's why I say it's not yet complete. And a siege is not an invasion. It says that the people that wake up, they are Israelites and they don't know it. When Yeshua appears, they get it. They get treated like, they wake up, he pours the Spirit out on them, and they get the everlasting life, and then they're coming back to Israel and the nations. If you read Isaiah, starting in 60 to the end of the book of Isaiah, you see all this. They get carried back and transported, not just on the ships of Tarshish, other things, back to Israel, and from the north. And from the north is likely the Abrahamic Accord countries, which would be like Lebanon. Well, Lebanon's not in Abrahamic Accords, but it would be Turkey, the Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Oman, UAE, and that kind of thing, Iran on the other side of the Persian Gulf, I don't believe is considered in the north. And Russia is north and then over to the right or the east a bunch, a big bunch. So I don't really know if that's north of Israel. I don't think so. Okay. Oh, you could always say, Sweden and Denmark and the UK are north, but that's pretty far away, Pretty far away. So that's what I'm seeing here prophetically. So we don't just do the news, we talk about prophecy too. All right, so I'll do a prayer for us in general and a little spiritual warfare, and I'll get going now. My Heavenly Father, Jehovah, I pray for me and my wife and all the true believers in the household that we would have your strength, stamina, and endurance, and your healing and recuperative power would flow through us. And I pray that us and our animals and pets would be safe, secure, and happy, healthy, and whole. And I pray for the peace of Jerusalem. I pray we don't get any more missile, drone, and other bomb attacks that make us have to rebuild the damage in Israel. I pray for me to do better videos and live streams. I pray for me and all the people to understand the Bible better. I pray for all of us to have more, that are believers, that have more faith and more wisdom as gifts of the Spirit. I pray if any of us need jobs, we find good jobs. And if any of us need clients and customers, we find and get those too. And I pray we all have adequate finances and then some extra. Okay? And I pray all this to you, my Heavenly Father, Jehovah, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And you can agree, with this, even if it's a video, not the live stream. If you're a believer, it'd be a good thing to do. Okay? Now, I'm going to do some spiritual warfare now. This will be slightly different, okay? My Heavenly Father, Jehovah, I submit to you on behalf of me and my wife and all the true believers and their families and their households, that any witchcraft or sorcery directed or targeting us people that I just mentioned would be null and void, of no value, no effect forever. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And I loose out of any one of the people I just named any unclean spirits that are in them, as loosed out of them must get out immediately and never return again. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. So I hope you got something out of this. Please try to give this a thumbs up or a like or subscribe. That's not a big deal. It's free, and Also, I'm getting back into a dry spell with offerings. I don't know why, but offerings are what make this thing work. And if you want this message to spread to other people, which you should want, you should do that. Sometimes I wonder, since so few people ever give offerings, that there's a tremendous amount of Satan bots watching these broadcasts. Just wondering about that. Okay, I'll have to ask the Lord. May not be, but I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I'm out. And I really hope you got something out of this. And remember, it's at the doors, so try to be cheerful. Redemption's at the doors.